Thank you for having me. Maybe my presentation is slightly different than the presentations you saw today, because I was heading the HR Analytic department, so it's a little bit more from a technical perspective, but I do hope you appreciate it in the end. So don't run away if the slides get a little bit technical. I promise it will be worthwhile and of value for you. So my first part will be a little bit on what is people analytics, what do we do? So how does the department look like? What services do we provide? And then I have a case on continuous listening. So how do we listen to our employees? And that's where the technical stuff starts kicking in as well. So maybe a little bit about our mission. Our mission is actually twofold. So we want to have a more evidence-based or fact-based HR culture within ABN AMRO. Make the right decisions, sure, but based on data. And we're not so much of the hardcore version that analytics provides you everything and you need to make a decision, but we think decision-making is intuition, is experience, plus data analytics. If you leave one of them out, you're missing out something, kind of. So I would really urge, if you're not doing it yet, to talk to your people analytic peers in your organization and start thinking how you can ground employee experience a little bit more in data. And another one of our mission, another part of our mission is it's just about creating insights, right? To make the right decisions in your organizations by using data or data analytics. And insights not only for the organization. I think I already saw a lot of examples today where the employee is actually benefiting from the analytics we do as well. So I will give you some examples later. And a lot of people or organizations talk about people analytics that if you do that, you will probably turn your strategy 180 degrees around. I don't believe in that. I think it's just hard work, people analytics, but it always helps you to find some initial insights or additional insights. It helps you tweak interventions or make a little bit smarter decisions. So it's not mind-blowing, but it's definitely necessary to do your work within HR. So what services do we provide from the department, right? So strategic workforce management, it's already mentioned a few times today. It's really important about reskilling projects, critical skills, etc. Future forward, so what do we need in the next 2-3 years and how are we going to design interventions today to close the gap on our workforce. People analytics, using statistics and advanced machine learning models, but I will be talking about it for the rest of the presentation. Survey management, I will touch upon that. Dashboarding, we do it in Power BI. There are many other tools, but that's how we do it. And we also do a lot of capability building. So teaching our HR generalists how to work with data. Tell them a little bit via interactive cases what it is to receive information from a data scientist and what to do with it. And we also, like 4 years ago, created a fact-based escape room, just to have some more critical thinking, teach critical thinking. If you have data, where should you look at? And what data sources should you discard and which data sets should you actually use and why? Some foundational slides. So what is people analytics? And I think the best way to explain it is by showing a few of the cases, right? These are a few cases that we've done in the last 2 to 3 years. And today, 2 of my, ex-colleagues are here, Jaap over there, Stijn over there. So if you need more detailed information, you can go to Jaap and Stijn. But just to stand out a few of those cases, creating skill-based organizations, also already talked about today, right? So where do we need to scale up in terms of skills? What skills do we need? Where are people maybe at risk? And how can we bring those people quickly to the other side of the organization? Well, if you have to do that as a human being by looking at spreadsheets, it's not going that quick. So what we did is we looked at a lot of unstructured data of all our employees. So your previous 2 jobs, maybe you did a learning course, maybe we have your resume. We looked at all the different employees and we took that in our database. And then we used an interface called an API to structure that data. So what we got back from that interface was a structured profile for every employee. And the good thing is that instantly you have a distribution of skills of your organization. And normally when you have a learning platform like Degreed or something else, people need to onboard first, right? And they can do some self-assessment, but before everybody does that self-assessment, you're 2 or 3 years ahead in time. So these types of techniques help you, in this case, to create skill distribution on the spot. I will be talking about continuous employee listening. We're looking at equal pay. We repeat that study periodically, not only looking at it from a gender perspective, but also from ethnicity perspective. We're looking at opportunities and threats related to hybrid working. Everybody's talking about hybrid working, but we just started, right? I mean, after COVID, now it's actually hybrid working. Before COVID, we were all at the office. During COVID, we were all fully at home. And now hybrid working kicks in. And I still think there's not enough data to claim a lot of claims that you actually hear. So we are investigating, okay, does it hurt social cohesion? And if it does, which personas actually does it hurt for? Does it hurt with collaboration? These are all things you can investigate with people analytics, actually quite easily if you have the data. Self-organization is also a hot topic in ABN Amro, I guess in more companies. What is actually delivering the value of self-organizing units? It's also something you can investigate. Understanding employee sentiment and retention, how do these relate? Some driver analysis we do. So the number of use cases you can do is almost unlimited. But of course, you need to have those right strategic questions in your organizations, and those use cases you should execute on. All right, just briefly, I'm not sure if you can read it with the light blue, but this is the data cube we're kind of using. So it's a lot of individual data, skill data, job level data, how long are you in your job or with the organization, what is your performance score, engagement scores. We also have a lot of team data. Are you part of a team that has an average high engagement score? Or are you part of a team where the mobility ratio is high? A lot of people come in, a lot of people move. And all those attributes can actually explain, for instance, absenteeism or net promoter score on the client side. So all those attributes, we can use them in models, right? So these team and organization attributes are also very valuable. HR services, that's the employee cycle, right? So we have recruitment data, we have onboarding data, we have data from our HR contact center, we have succession management data. And if applicable, we will use that data also in our modeling. But the real important data set is, of course, the business data, because that's the strategic, explaining actually the strategic goals. So what about sales? What about net growth? Or quality of work, or fraud, or new customer? And of course, absenteeism, engagement can also be in there. There can also be strategical goals. But the essence, I guess, of people analytics is connecting your HR data cube with business data. And then looking at, okay, where are the relationships or the clusters and what can we do with it in terms of decision making? Moving on. So it's not about the algorithms within people analytics. A lot of people do a lot of name dropping. Me as well, with this slide, actually. So if you hear about statistics, clustering, decision trees, topic detection, it's all fine, but your data scientist or a vendor or universities, PhDs can help you with it. Probably you have, if you don't have the data scientist within HR, probably you have data scientists in some other functions and they can help you out. But what I want to stretch with this slide is actually the bullets. I hope these are intuitive, relevant questions for you that you could ask within an organization. So, is there a difference between productivity among departments? What are my high performance people? What are my low performance people? What is actually the connection with leadership traits and absenteeism? Do we see something? Are our interventions, our leadership interventions, which are very costly to develop and to deliver, actually delivering an increase in skills for those leaders that we want to see? These are all things you can test. You won't test them on all aspects, but I think where it's very strategically important or where it's very expensive, I think you should. So based on your question and the data, your data scientist can help you with picking the right algorithms. They're just a mean to an end, right? It's most important is what is the strategic question you want to answer. So, the case. Continuous employee listening. Where should we start? Just by shouting out. Where should we start with continuous employee listening? There's no wrong answer. Actually, there is. But
Pulse survey?
Sorry?
Frequent listening pulse survey?
Frequent listening pulse survey. Anything else?
You need to ask first.
The right answer. Start listening. No, it's not as simple as that, but that's maybe the first thing you should think about. How am I listening to my employees? What services do we have in the organization? So here you see a list, and it's not limited, but we use an employee experience survey, which is a monthly survey. 10% to the organization, because you have to be careful about survey fatigue. So we like doing samples, right? One or two simple questions and open questions, but I will be using this one as for the rest of the case. We still have an employee engagement survey, which is annual and full, so everybody gets an invite. And reports are pushed to managers of departments to get some actions on it. We have pulse surveys, so for instance, if a specific business unit is in timing just ahead of a big reorganization, they want to know some stuff, and maybe a year later they want to ask the same questions and see how it changes. Or we want to know specifically, what do you people think, or our employees think about benefits in our organization? So it's a special pulse survey. We used to have, so we stopped with it actually, an employee community where you have a little bit more of a qualitative discussion online, discussion threads, and you can ask questions and have a sort of a focus group online. But we stopped doing that with this instrument. And you have a lot of transactional data. Don't forget your transactional data, right? I mean, what benefits are people using? What questions are people asking our contact center? Those can also be very valuable when you want to analyze sentiment and experiences of employees. So start listening. What's next? And I think Martijn mentioned it as well. It's very tempting for a human being, if you see signals coming from this data, to immediately start thinking about a solution. Let's do an app, let's boost communication. So first, we think you should really deep dive on the problem. So love the problem. You can do more analytics, you can look at high and low mapping data, and also in here is the service design methodology, right? So do we actually understand the problem? So again, the top layer provides you signals, but it doesn't always tell you why things are happening, or it doesn't bring you the context of specific signals. So you need focus groups, interviews, wrapped within a service design project, I guess, to really understand what's going on. And then you can start designing a solution. And then it's just fine to try a solution, right? That is 3. It's okay, just experiment and see what happens. Do topics disappear based on our interventions? If people complain about recognition, we deep dive on it and we say, okay, maybe it's not so financially driven, but people just want to get a nudge that they did a good job. We implement a thumbs up program, but by implementing that thumbs up program, do people complain less about recognition? And we do that like every quarter, every half year. This is a repetitive sequence, so to say. Does it make sense? All right, so let's look into the monthly survey. This is the question we ask our people. How likely are you to recommend ABN AMRO as a good employer to a friend or relative? That's a numerical score. We calculate a net promoter score. We call that an ENPS, right? And we ask 2 open questions. So what is ABN AMRO doing well as an employer, the top? And what could ABN AMRO do better as an employer, the tip? open questions. And I can be honest about it, we don't read them all. So we need to find a methodology, a technical methodology, to make sense of what people are telling us in this survey. There are too many reactions or individuals giving responses. We can't read it. So we thought ourselves helped by some vendors to do topic detection and text analytics. And that's extremely important in this case. And we liked it because it provides us with more context. And it was open. We can think that the next dimensions are relevant for people and we can ask close questions about them. But I think it's a better approach, what's on your mind. Otherwise, you could miss maybe some relevant topics of your employees. We always have a debate on onboarding, large projects on onboarding, and from people analytics, we're always, why onboarding? It's not so many people. Are people really complaining? Not really. So why are we investing in onboarding? Why aren't we looking at, I don't know, bureaucracy, which may pop up? And how can we make that dissatisfier disappear? So if you're really serious about employee experience, I think you should have a sort of a business case on which topics you are going to focus on, right? If you're saying onboarding, succession management, okay, but why? Show me the data, why that is a problem in the organization and for who. And if you can't do that, you're shooting a little bit from the hip. And there's a risk for employee experience to maybe be one of the next HR practices in a long line in history to be less effective. And I think people analytics can help avoid that. So I would urge you to talk again to your people analytics peers and think about, okay, but how can we make it fact-based, focus on the right things, and then evaluate if things are changing. That's something where people analytics and employee experience actually can reinforce themselves. All right, so what can we expect from these questions? Let's look at the tip question. So what can we do better? Right, so people might, this is fictional of course, my manager does not listen to my ideas, I cannot do the training I want, would like more diversity in senior management, I have poor development opportunities, workload is not okay. Well, great. What's that? What? No. Well, for ABN Amro it is. This never happens. No, it's definitely inspired by reality. But it's a lot of information, right? It's not one thing. And employees are sharing their thoughts. We're not forcing them in several buckets to give a score from 1 to 7 or 1 to 5. So this is valuable, but we needed to transform this data to something the computer can understand. So the first things we had to do is split those units of information into separate sentences. And you could do that by some routines, separator routines and some more intelligent routines. And we have to make sure that plural, singular, uppercase, lowercase, abbreviations are kind of smoothed out. So you had to do some data transformation. Otherwise, a computer might think, or an algorithm, that manager with a capital is something different than manager with a lowercase, right? So clean up the data. Most importantly, once you've done that, characters, computers are not so fond on characters. They prefer numbers, right? And it's more efficient to look at numbers. So what we did is we translated these sentences to numbers. Forget the specific routines. So this is Word2Vec, TF-IDF. You can forget the names, name dropping. But it's like a word count. And the Word2Vec is just a abstract translation of a sentence to an abstract line or sequence of numbers, which is very unique for a sentence. And that's where the power comes in, because if you do that for all sentences, and you create a training data set, which is typically done within machine learning, you create a training data set, you train your algorithm, then new data comes in and you start predicting. In the training data set, a little bit with the help of ourselves, with humans, and the computer, we labeled a lot of sentences like, my manager never listens, my manager is not interested in me. We label that as manager quality, right, for argument's sake. And those, again, were translated to numbers. And then a new thing came in. My manager does not listen to me. So how does that relate to my manager quality? And we have 150 buckets or topics to choose from. So the computer gets a new sentence, translated to numbers, and starts looking, okay, what's closest? And it puts them in the right bucket. So by a model, well, talking about name dropping, with a support vector machine algorithm in this case, we are able to find the best match. And with a precision of over 90, a precision rate of over 90, we are able to put that sentence in the right bucket. So that means only 1 in 10 we do it wrong. But luckily that's for the smaller topics people talk about.
But do you define the topics, or are they redefined from some
Well, we
database?
Yeah, we predefined it a little bit as a human together with the computer in the training data set. And then when new data comes in, the computer says, okay, that is closest to topic A, B, C.
You said the taxonomy by yourself. You formulated
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, true. So this is actually analytical very good, 90% precision rate. I'm sure other data scientists will agree. But like I said, again, it's 1 out of 10 is wrong, so you need to keep on improving that model and making sure that, well, that it even improves further. But you can hopefully imagine the power of doing this. You can send out open questionnaires, open questions, and actually structure that data without a human interference in great dashboards. So we visualize it in Power BI, and you see here some spheres or bubbles, and every bubble is a topic. And it's available for the whole organization. And it's discussed every quarter within Expo -1 management teams as well. So if the bubble is big, it's a topic a lot of people talk about. If it's higher in the graph, people are more happy about it. If it's lower in the graph, people are dissatisfied with it. And the eNPS score is the x-axis here. So people on the right, bubbles on the right, people tend to be more happy with the company as an employer than on the left side. And it's just one visual. You can slice and dice it in different ways, but this is something we liked. And all the other slides are more deep dive slides where you can look at trends on specific topics. So this is now transparent within the whole ABN AMRO. And people are using it to make decisions and to see if interventions, again, after a certain period, disappear or are still there. Then the intervention is not effective, right? So we need to try something else. So that's the whole point here. Now we have enough data for the last 2 or 3 years on these type of topics coming straight from our employees, right? People are not numbers, but numbers do represent people's sentiment and emotions. So these topics were very relevant also to model, also to use in new models we have. So I'm not sure if you can read it, but here it says eNPS and leave intention. So we took these two as a target. Inspired by the exercise I just showed you, we took that data and put it in our model to see, okay, but which of these topics now actually influences eNPS or retention? As a human being, we don't know. Statistically, you can test. So is that onboarding? Or is it something else? Or is it succession management? Or is it, I don't know, right? So what we found is that these 5, proud of products and services, culture of fit, job satisfaction, proud of reputation of the company, confidence in the future of the company, and having good career opportunities, was influencing the 2 targets on the top. And sometimes what you find is not very actionable. So what we did is we also looked at the drivers that influence those top 6, right? And then we undouble them. So we take out the ones that are duplicate over here. And here you see a lot of words, topics, straight from your employees. And you can do some powerful things with it. So if you're, for instance, articulating your HR strategy and your two targets, let's simplify HR for a minute. Your two targets are eNPS and retention. You could use these words. It's actually a narrative that is fact-based, driven, right? But you can do more. You can look at those topics and say, okay, how can we influence them? How can we maximize or minimize them? So maybe 3 of them here: competent leadership, believe in vision and direction, and personal development opportunities are kind of in the area of leadership development or in reach of a manager. So you have a specific process owner who can start thinking about, okay, how can we improve this? Same for performance management, same for culture and values, or any other topic or process owner you find. So the only thing I hope you take away from my presentation is that any HR practice, employee experience or whatever, but now we're talking about employee experience, can really benefit from people analytics. And if you leave that out, I guess you have the risk of maybe creating not so much of a sustainable and accepted practice in the end in 2 or 3 years. And with that, I'm out of time and leave you with it.